morning, everybody. It's Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. Hope you're having a good day. It's a beautiful sunny day out. I was out listening to the birds this morning. Oh, it was so lovely. It was really, really nice. In fact, I took my camera out to record the birds early in the morning. We have a little tiny bird at a little birdhouse I put out here. Anyway, I'm working on my block party, Jean's Block Party 2021, my medallion quilt. We're coming along. A few of you are following along exactly my pattern, my sampler quilt. And we have been working on some fairly large projects the last few videos. We worked on our large Dresden plate in the center. In the center, and again, I'll put a picture up of the original pattern, my idea that I that I'm following block by block. I haven't put my quilt together yet, so I don't know measurements of borders or sashings, but I have an idea, and it's coming along, as you will see. I'll show you in a second. We've done the, if you have done any kind of applique in the corners, the four corners, the inner corners, the 12-inch squares. In my last video I put up, you didn't have to do the Hawaiian applique if you wanted to do it. If you wanted to do other blocks, fine, to fill in those 12-inch, because basically we're doing 6.5-inch squares, 6.5 is unfinished squares. I have some border on my quilt that I believe now, as I'm looking at it, it's up on my design wall. Oh, lovely little bird. I think I am going to go with these sizes of border, but I don't know exactly what they are. Just sort of sliced them off. But again, that's to come. But this week or this time, I am doing my Flying Geese border. Now my Flying Geese, we have done 4 Flying Geese, 2 at a time, or 4 at a time, no, when one of the blocks, we made a larger 6-inch Flying Geese, 2 of them block. This time I'm showing you how to make 4-inch finished by 2-inch rectangle Flying Geese units, 4 at a time, okay? Now I go into some math. Oh, you should be so proud of me. I did this earlier in the week and I wasn't feeling too well, and I really messed up the math. I didn't know what I was doing. I had to get Ian in, and he sort of helped me with it. But anyway, this tutorial, this idea, this what you're going to be seeing on my design board is what I've done so far with my Flying Geese. I have made 4 Flying Geese at a time, but I'm going to put up a little clip. I might fast forward it, I'm not quite sure, or do it in real time, of how I made actually 16 Flying Geese, chain piece them in just a few moments, in just a few minutes. But this is my Flying Geese that I made. I made 4. This is just for demonstration. I've made 4 Flying Geese at one time, okay? And I give you the cutting measurements. Now, I've made 4 one time, 4 another time, 4 another time. Now, I have said, and I've tried to figure out loosely, do not hold me to this. This is not a pattern that, you know, you get from a store from professional quilters. I'm just doing this. I'm winging it. You're sort of over my shoulder watching me. I'm going to make my Flying Geese border fit my quilt. I don't know what size it's going to be. I may need more. I may need less. But for this project, how many did I have around? Oh, I forget. 68 oh, I forget. Anyway, it's in my project. It's in my tutorial to follow. How many go around each side? 28 on each side. 28, whatever that is. 112. I think 112 something. Flying geese. But making 4 at a time or making chain piecing really does it very quickly. The thing is, I show you, I sort of veer off a little, showing you a couple of the tools I use. My Fiskars ruler, because I'm cutting large pieces. So far we've only cut small pieces, so I haven't whipped out my Fiskars ruler. But you guys who know I love my Fiskars ruler, because I had to cut this yardage. You're going to need yardage for the back here, okay? And then I have chosen to make, and I explain it. Okay, of course, I repeat myself. I've chosen to use my warm facet fabrics for my flying geese. My warm fabrics here, and then my white and black and gray polka dot there. Because I have, these are warm colors. I've used cool colors around my center medallion, which is both cool and warm. So I'm going to go over and I'll show you how far I've gotten so far. Now, I have not sewn anything. I have only pinned it. And so I'm trying to account for the seam allowances, but you'll see what I mean. This is an idea. I've just made my flying geese. So it's to come how I actually put them together. So here's my quilt coming along, and here are one side of my flying geese units that I've already made, and then I have some more and over on my cutting table that I've already made. Hasn't taken me all that long because we're making 4 at a time. And again, this is just pinned up here. I've tried to compensate and allow for the seam allowance, okay? Now, you might notice that I have not cut off my dog ears. By all means, you can do that. If you want to not square them up, rectangle them up to 4.5 by 2.5, that's unfinished. If you want to cut off your rectangles, your little dog ears. I don't do that, but most people do cut off the little dog ears, the little triangles at the end. So this, I think, as I was saying, the more I look at this, the more I quite like that bold black and white stripe. That size, I'm not quite sure how it is, I just sort of sliced it off. I have to measure it. But again, I'm going to be putting white sashing in between these blocks, just a small sashing. So this is basically the size. Again, this hasn't gone up to the very top, but I might put another, like a cornerstone up in the top, or maybe even a 4-patch, a small 4-patch. I'll see when it comes to sewing them together, my flying geese, exactly how many I will be needing. Now, why I do sometimes a cornerstone is you can sort of make that a little bit bigger or smaller. I know the quilt police will say you can't, it has to be exact. I make things fit. I make things fit. And so this quilt, as it's coming along, will be square, and I'll make my borders and my sashing fit my quilt. But for now, I'm just teaching you or showing you how I made the flying geese units, okay? Oops, one fell. 4 at a time, my flying geese unit. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. I think my math was pretty good. Making them is awesome. If you do it step by step by step, you'll get your perfect 1/4 inch seam. And again, I show you how I press and how I iron my flying geese units. I actually iron the my units. I press everything to the dark. If you come off your sewing machine, you'll notice that your fabric sort of wants to go to the light, one seam. You'll notice that. But I sort of force it and press it to go to the dark. That way I am assured I will have absolutely no shadowing of my darker fabric. And I do have some dark fabrics and light. So I press my seams, and I show you exactly how to do that. Press them to the dark. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Yeah, it's been a beautiful week here. It's getting a little bit warm actually. Working on this. This is up here on my design board, and I get inspired and I tweak some things. But for this week, flying geese 4 at a time. I hope you love it. All right, folks. Thanks a lot. See ya. So hopefully this will make a little bit of sense. I've tried to do math, and I think I've got it almost right. Again, this is a pretty close approximate. My pattern obviously was not to scale because I have many more flying geese, and I've sort of figured it out as I was showing you more or less my beginning, my Flying Geese, at that point there on this square here, my quilt is going to be square with approximately this size border. And I think that's what it's going to end up, a 3-inch border or something like that. Again, I have compensated to a certain extent, to a great extent, for the seams. Okay, so right here, more or less, but I'm starting at this point here, there are 28 Flying Geese. Okay, there's 28 Flying Geese down one side of my pattern so far, one side of my quilt so far. So that means there are 112 Flying Geese on 4 sides. My Flying Geese unfinished unit, as it comes off my sewing machine, my rectangle is 4.5 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall here. Okay? It's a 4.5 inch by 2.5 inch unit, unfinished. It will be 4 inches wide by 2 inches, including the seams, okay? And again, I have tried to include sort of, that is just pinned up, but included the seams. So again, this is more or less how many units, but this is a good place to start. Figuring out I'm gonna need 112 Flying Geese units, okay? Now, again, coming back to one side, I have 28 individual units, okay? We're making 4 at a time. So 28 divided by 4, we have 7 pieces of fabric that are the actual colored geese, okay? That's the colored geese. Now, as you can see, I have chosen for my geese going around my quilt warm tones. They're the yellows and the pinks and the oranges and the reds, okay? So, because again, bringing back to my quilt is in my 9 patches around here are gray and whites and more cool tones, blues and greens. My corner applique are the red tones. My sampler blocks going around the outside are just all the tones together, and so is my Dresden plate, all the tones together. But my Flying Geese going around the whole entire quilt on all 4 sides are going to be my hot tones. Hence, I've pulled these fabrics here. So I've started over there. You need to cut to make our 112 Flying Geese. At this point, you need to cut 28 5¼ inch squares. That's for the actual darker. I'm going to put, this is my darker side here, my darker geese, and these for me are my dotted fabrics, okay? That for me is my dotted fabric. So my dark, hot colors here is the geese flying, okay? You're going to be cutting 28 5¼ inch squares. We may have more, we may need more, we may need a little bit less, but this is a fairly good starting point. We have the 28 5¼ inch squares for all 4 sides because we're getting 4 Flying Geese units out of 1 square. Okay, so we just need 28 5¼ inch squares. However, we are going to be needing the dotted fabric, which is the sky fabric here. Okay, we're going to be needing 2 of those pieces, okay, 2 squares for each unit, and we're going to be cutting for one side 56, or in total on all 4 sides you're going to be cutting 224 2 7/8 inch squares for all 4 sides. These are the 2 important things. You're cutting 28 5¼ inch squares and 224 2 7/8 inch squares to make all 112 Flying Geese units. Now, I'm going to show you, I've started cutting my own pieces, but I'm going to show you how what I actually use and how I've actually started cutting my my squares here. Those of you who have been following since the beginning of our little block party here know that I recommended you to get your 6¼ inch ruler here, square ruler. So we were just squaring up our 6.5 inch unfinished block. So most probably you already have this ruler. And again, most of you have all of these rulers and these cutters in your toolbox. But if you're new here, these are just a few of the things that I pull out when I'm working with something a little bit larger. I'm going to be cutting 2 7/8 inch strips off of my fabric here, which I had gotten yardage, okay? And I'm going to be using my larger rulers, and I'm going to be using my Fiskars ruler, which if you've been following me, you know that this is my baby. I love my Fiskars. I'll come to that in a moment. What I have here, which I really do love, and again, this is just my personal thing. I'm not sponsoring it or anything. This is called an Olipfa Lip Edge ruler, and it's made in the US by olipfa.com. And what it has a lip on it here that grabs the cutting mat when you're, putting it down here. I'll show you right here. It grabs the mat so that it stays lovely and square, and it's really on there, it doesn't shift. I love my lip ruler. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to neaten up this edge. I'm cutting my sky or whatever that wings are, and I have yardage here, and I've just folded it in half over to here, and I have the two edges here. My fold is down here, my selvage is up there, and I'm going to be cutting 2 layers at a time, or 4 layers of fabric. I'm just going to neaten up this edge, and I like my Olipfa Splash, my little rotary cutter. I like the smaller one, even though I'm cutting larger pieces. I like my small little Olipfa. I do have the larger ones, but I like that one. So that edge is lovely and neatened up. Now, my Fiskars ruler. Love my Fiskars ruler. Anybody who knows me, I've had this for 6-7 years. This is a 6-inch by 24-inch long rotary cutter ruler combination, okay? The rotary cutter is in here. You never ever touch the rotary cutter. It never comes in contact with your hand. And this edge here is exact where the cut is going to be made on this edge here. Now, as you know, I love to do a 2 ruler cutting method, especially when cutting larger strips, okay? Now, what I do, because I'm cutting the whole length of this fabric here, I would usually sort of start up here if I'm just cutting say from here to here. But I need to have my rotary cutter from this point down here all the way up. So what I do is I line up my ruler on the line here, okay? Right where the fold of the fabric is, everything is all lined up, okay? Now, what I do is I'm going to take my 2 7/8. Now, 2 7/8 this is a 3x5 card. 2 7/8. There's my 3 inches, as you can see. 2 7/8 is the line right before the 3. Right before the 3. So it's you come over to that line right there, and you come down to that line right there. Let me just see. I'm sort of crooked. So there's my 2 7/8 inch. I need to cut, how many? 224 2 7/8 inch squares. So I'm going to start out by cutting a 2 7/8 inch strip. So I have my ruler nice and straight, but I need to find my 2 7/8 inch on my ruler here. Just move that right over there, and there it is on my ruler. Now I'm going to check it. It's there, 2 7/8 there, 2 7/8 there, and I'm going to come down. Got to shift this over just slightly. So I'm checking it here and here the whole way. Get that out of the way, here and here. The whole way. This is a 2 7/8 inch strip there, okay? Now, the rotary cutter is underneath, okay? And it's going to cut exactly on that line where I have measured. I'm holding it tightly here, and I'm just pushing it down firmly. And now I'm going to start at the bottom here. Now, I have to tell you, I've had this rotary cutter for 5, 6, 7 years. And I've never changed the blade. I'm sure there's ways you can, but it has never failed me. Watch, it fails me. So I push down sturdily and come over my board, coming up, and there is my 2 7/8 inch strip. Simple, simple, simple. And as I said, and that's 2. That's double. That's double the fabric. Now, I'm just going to continue. I'm just going to pull this over, find my 2 7/8 inch. Now, if you've been watching me on other projects over the years, you have seen me do this very quickly. It is just a marvelous tool. I love this tool. And I can cut strips till the cows come home here. There's 2 7/8, 2 7/8. I'm cutting, so right there, in that period of time, I've cut 6 2 7/8 inch strips. Now, what I will do, I'm just going to do some at a time. I'm not going to do all at a time, although I get the majority of my strips cut. I don't do them all. I'm not overwhelmed if I have to walk away. So I do like dozens at a time, but not like hundreds at a time for me. But by all means, so I'm just going to line these up. Again, people have asked me what I love in my sewing room. I love my Martelli cutting mat. My Martelli cutting mat is awesome. I've had other mats, but man, I love my Martelli. So I'm just going to line these up, scratch them together. The fold ends are here, so I'll get rid of that fold. Everything's lovely and straight. I'll take my mat, my ruler, and again, as you can see now, I can just line it up. I can line it up on my mat here, these lines, and it's lovely and straight. I'm just going to cut those bits off, and now I'm going to come in and do my 2 7/8 inch. Again, just shift that over there, find my 2 7/8. Just make minuscule little corrections, and there are my, what would that be, a 24? Or no, I don't know how many that would be. Whatever it would be. So 2 7/8, find that here, here, and here. Shift that up, check it again. Because again, as you know, when you're doing rotary cutting, cutting strips, sometimes your strips can shift, and you have to correct it. So now I'm going to continue cutting my little squares here. But now the next thing we have to do, which is a tedious job for this thing that we're making, we have to mark all of our blocks here. We have to mark all of our 2 7/8 inch squares. Okay, what you're going to be doing is the mark that you're going to make is not going to show. Now, I don't advise using a Sharpie, but I'm using a green pen. It's okay because we're going to be cutting it off. So I'm going from corner to corner on the wrong side, not the right side, the wrong side of my fabric. I'm going from corner to corner. Now, I hold my ruler tightly, and it's just a thread inside, so I allow for the pen width, the pen point, just a thread inside, and I'm holding my ruler very tightly on there, on my fabric here. I don't start at the top because sometimes it scrunches, it creases up the fabric there. I start at the middle with a nice firm marking, and there is my marking. Maybe you can't see that, but I can. And we're going to be stitching on either side of that. But I'm going to do quite a few of these, and then I'm going to show you how I make one at a time, and then also how I quickly can chain piece quite a lot. Nicely. So I don't have any nasty surprises when it comes to stitching it out. And I have my 5 1/4 inch piece, and I have my 4 2 7/8 inch, which have been marked. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to put the right side, the pretty side down, with the line from the corner to the center. Okay? You do not want your line from the center to the center. You want your line to be from the corner to the center. Okay? And if you've cut them lovely and square, it will fit right on there. You're going to take your next one, and you're going to put it opposite side, pretty side down, corner to center. And in an ideal world, your line will match right up. You've been taking pains to get that line really nice and straight. Now, by all means, you could pin this on either side if you want. I don't need to, because I know my fabric's going to just stay nice and firm on my fabric here. But by all means, if you need to, you can pin it on either side. What you're going to do is we're going to sew down one side and then come back the other. for making one, okay? To make one with four, to make four out of one unit here, one thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our needle down. I find putting my needle down a lot of times helps with my control a little bit. I put my needle right down and it comes right at the 1/4 inch mark down because we're putting our presser foot, our 1/4 inch presser foot, right on the line, right next to the line, okay, on the inside here. There's my needle is coming down. I'm not starting up here. I'm not starting up there. I'm starting right there, and that's 1/4 inch in. And I'm going to just go slowly. My presser foot is riding right alongside of that line. Just go slowly. You don't want to stretch it because this is on the bias. So just let the machine do its trick. Now, this is overlapping here, okay? You're going to have a little tiny square in there. That's perfect. Your lines are matching up. That's overlapping. You just want to come through that, like that, keeping it nice and straight. Now, I leave my needle down, and I bring my presser foot up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this around gently and just pinch a little bit so I don't stress that stitching there, about 2 inches. And I'm just going to get that thread out of the way, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to come back down the other side. My needle's down already, so I have control, and there we go. I've just letting my machine pull the stitches along, riding right alongside of that line now, okay? Now, I'm going to pull this is for just making one. I'm going to pinch that and pull. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim. I'm going to cut on my line. My line is green. I'm going to cut on my line. Okay? Be very careful. You obviously don't cut through the stitching. And right there. Okay? And you have these 2 pieces here. All right. Now what I do is I pick up my fabric here by my darker, and I sort of flip the darker up there. By all means, if you wanted to go over and iron this, I don't find it necessary because it works out well. What we're going to do is you're just going to, without stretching it or anything, you're just going to finger press right where that seam is right there. Okay? That seam is going underneath and behind, okay? You've sort of pushed the white seam back to the dark, okay? With this corner here. You're going to pick up another square, corner to center, okay? Corner to center, and it hangs off. You see that? It hangs off there. And that's exactly what we want. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to put our needle down, come in 1/4 inch, and we're going to stitch along this side, and we're going to stitch right to that sort of intersection right there. The needle's going to go down right there. That will ensure our 1/4 inch. Just go slowly. Now remember, you want to just tuck that seam from here to here under. And I'm just stitching that. Get my fingers out of the way. I'm just stitching that next to that line. And where's my needle going to end up? It's going to end up right there in that intersection, right there. Needle down, presser foot up. I'm going to turn. I'm going to just pinch that slightly. I'm going to just tuck it around, twirl it around, and my needle just sort of fits right in that other little intersection there now. Okay? And there it is riding along the side of my green line. I'm going to come back on myself and right off. Pinch and pull and trim. Now, I'm going to cut on that line, that green line. Right through that intersection. And we have 1, 2. Now we're going to make 2 more. Perfect flying geese. So what I do is I pull this up, I pull that back, I sort of just finger press that lightly, ever so lightly, with the seam underneath. Corner to center, hanging over, needle down, press the foot down, and and again, I'm tucking the seam under, tucking that seam under. Where am I aiming for? I'm aiming for that little intersection right there, where my needle is going to stay down. Right there. Needle down, press your foot up, swivel, pull it so it doesn't stress these stitches. Get that out of the way, making sure that seam is tucked underneath. And again, my needle is going exactly where it should, right in that little intersection there. There. And my presser foot is riding right alongside of that green line, making a perfect 1/4 inch. Needle up, pinch and pull and trim. And then again, I'm going to cut on that line. And what have I made? 2 more perfect flying geese units with a perfect 1/4 inch up there. So now I'm going to go and show you how I iron these. Now my flying geese units have come right off of my sewing machine, okay? Now you know how I am with setting seams. So it's a little bit funky, but we're just going to go and set that seam there and then just sort of push that one up like that. I think it's very important. Now again, this might be a little bit tedious, but this is how I do it. I do not trim off that dog ear, okay? The reason why I don't trim off that dog ear is I want my flying geese, I want to press to the dark side. So for me, that's pressing to this side here, my patterned fabric, okay? Sometimes I always say, let the fabric press it where it wants to go. Maybe it wants to go that way, but in this instance, I don't want any of the dark shadowing behind my light fabric. I have some dark fabric here. I don't want that shadowing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over here, okay? I'm going to turn it over, make it as square, not stress it, and I'm going to press one seam in. And you're going to see that it has this sort of dog ear up here, but that dog ear should flatten out and straighten up with the top of your block. And I'll show you that in a minute. And the other seam does want to go towards the dark. Okay? So you see that? That dog ear, whoops. Let's pull that out a bit. That dog ear pressed right into that seam. Okay, and it's pressed beautifully to the dark. You see that? Now, by all means, you could trim that off. By all means, you could trim that off. But there's 250 million of these. I'm not doing that. So, and I'm not trimming these dog ears off either. But I'll show you when I get to that. So that is that way. That's going to go right in the seam there, and we have a perfect 1/4 inch seam there, and it's nice and flat. Now, I will trim, I will to a certain extent, I'm not going to fuss too much. I will just maybe get rid of these threads. This is now 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches, okay? That is what you want. So here again, off my machine, I'm going to quickly set that seam there, just sort of pull that over like that, turn it around, turn it to the inside, okay? And again, you might want to spritz this with some water, pull it out to the extent. I'm going to flip this one over because this is on the other side. And just very carefully push that down and press. And it's lovely and flat. My back looks as good as my front. And that dog ear has lined right up with the top. I'm going to chain piece just to show you for demonstration how I will chain piece. I'll just do 4. I'll do 4 at a time, 4 of these, and make 4 each. So right now I'm going to be making 4, 8, 12. I'll be making 16 flying geese unit right now. I'll just I'll just show you how I'm going to do that. Flying geese made in just a few minutes. So again, loosely, there's my 16 that I just did right off of my ironing board fairly quickly. So again, loosely, 4 sides of my quilt. Maybe I'll need more, maybe I'll need less. I'm going to be making 112 of these flying geese units, and that is cutting 5 1/4 inch squares and 2 7/8 inch squares. So I'm going to be putting this together at a little bit later. I'm going to just continue starting making my flying geese. So the next video I'll be putting up about my block party is trying to figure out if I need corner pieces or if I want to start putting the quilt together with borders. I'll see. But as of now, this is about making 4 flying geese at a time and or learning how to chain piece. So I hope you enjoy this, folks. I had a ta-da moment. All right, see you later. Love from the Trueloves. Bye.